Okay, welcome to this episode of the podcast. My name is Amanda and I am the founder of Super Simple Sleep. Today, I am really happy and excited to be joined by ex-client and now friend, Kate. Kate, welcome and thank you for joining me. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for coming on. We worked together, obviously, last December. So what I would love to do today is to take people through kind of your journey parenting. We're going to talk a little bit about sleep and how that's kind of affected you and your family.
Yeah.
The help you kind of sort through it, what life looks like at the other end. You've always been really open and honest about mental health as well. So we're going to touch on that as well, if you are happy with that.
Yes, definitely.
Brilliant. Right, well, let's jump straight into it. I'm going to hand over to you. Tell everyone a little bit about parenting from the beginning from you.
Well, I have a 2-year-old. She's 2 and 5 months. And from day one, she didn't sleep. I had quite a high risk pregnancy. I have what they call a Didelphys uterus, which means I have 2 uteruses and 2 cervix, which we didn't know until we found out that we were pregnant. So the journey from conception, which obviously was enjoyable, through to birth wasn't really very much fun. It was in the middle of the pandemic. In fact, we found out we were pregnant, I think it was 4 weeks into the pandemic. Both of us work in London and are shift workers, so we were still travelling to and from London. And then we had to have checks every 2 weeks with the hospital, so everything felt quite daunting. And I think it was what's the word, not exploded, what's the word, like maximized, I don't know what the word is, by the fact that it was the middle of the pandemic and we couldn't speak to anyone face to face or anything like that. My husband couldn't come to any of the appointments with me, not even to the midwife appointments. So yeah, everything was a bit scary. And then I think towards the end of the pregnancy, I started thinking to myself, "Oh my God, I'm about to have a baby. I'm about to become a mother. What am I doing?" And then the day that Eden was born, we didn't know what sex we were having. I had to have a planned C-section because of the uterus issue. She had fetal growth restriction. And then when I had the anaesthetic, it took them 3 tries to get it in because I have a tightly compacted spine. I was shaking like a leaf and just beside myself, and I just thought, I don't want to do this. Then the anaesthetic went too high and I could feel nothing until the very tip of my forehead. So the machine's going off, my blood pressure's obviously, or heart rate, whatever it is going through the roof. And then Eden gets dragged out feet first, and actually bum first. And my husband turned to me and said, "It's a girl." And I just remember saying, "That's nice," or thinking, "That's nice. I don't want her." And I still feel guilty about that now. And then obviously he wasn't allowed to stay with me because the anaesthetic was too high. I couldn't feel her when she was put on me. So I was sort of like holding this baby with my own hands plonked on top of her. Steve was allowed to stay for a couple of hours and then he had to leave. So I think she was born at 11:04 and then he had to leave, come back once I was out of recovery, and then leave again at about 7 p.m. So from 7 p.m. till around about 11 a.m. the next morning, I was by myself on this maternity ward with 2 other ladies, both of whose babies were latching beautifully, who slept if they weren't feeding. And Eden didn't latch. She cried continuously. She wouldn't sleep. So I didn't sleep. Obviously, I can't really move because I just had the C-section. And that, for literally from day one, is when our sleep issues started. And then fast forward a few months, I was coping on 1 hour of sleep a night, literally, and I'm not even exaggerating. It was 1 hour a night. She was a very grunty baby, and it turns out she had severe trapped wind. But we went and saw so many different specialists and people, and paid for massage and physiotherapy, and it just, no one really knew what it was. It turns out she just farted a lot, or needed to fart a lot, should I say. I knew there was something wrong with me. I don't know whether it was just a massive hormone dump or what it was, but I ended up under the Mum and Infant Mental Health Services because I just wasn't coping. I didn't want her. I didn't want to hold her. At one point, I took her for a walk to get her to sleep, and I stood on the middle of a bridge over a dual carriageway and honestly thought about throwing her off the bridge, and thought to myself, if I throw her off this bridge, she'll stop crying. And then something clicked in me, and all of a sudden I was like, if I throw her off this bridge, she won't be here anymore. And I think it was that point that I went home and said to my husband, I need help. And unfortunately, our GP wasn't very good. They just said, oh, it's just the baby blues. Eventually I was referred to Mum and Infant Mental Health, and had someone come into the house to monitor how I was with her, to go through our routine. My husband tried to help by doing night shifts, as it were, looking after her, but I didn't sleep anyway. And he then got frustrated with me because I wasn't sleeping, but I just physically couldn't. It just broke me completely. And even at November was Eden's second birthday, and she still wasn't sleeping through. And everyone else is telling me about, oh yeah, I had a great night's sleep, my daughter's sleeping through, she breastfeeds beautifully. We didn't even get to breastfeed in the end because it didn't work. It seems that everyone else was going through this beautiful journey, and oh, I'm so in love with my child, and don't get me wrong, I loved her, I just didn't want her. And I still, like I said a minute ago, I still feel so guilty for those feelings, that every time I end up having a go at her for something now, I'm pulled back to that memory. But fast forward to November last year, so she was 2, and I said we had already employed a sleep consultant, and I'm not going to say the name, but it was a very generic plan we were given. We were given a number to have some one-to-one through WhatsApp, but it was a case of send a message and then get a voice note back. And it didn't seem very personal to me or to Eden. I wasn't asked about her routine or anything. And they were lovely, and it worked for about a month. And then it all went to rubbish again. She wouldn't sleep unless she was on me or on Steve. She would want a bottle still at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock. And then by 5:30, we were up for the day and then go into bed. Her bed, she would go to bed, but she would wake up at 10, 12, 2, 4. And she also had a dummy, and this dummy had become her lifeline. And every photo we've got of her, there's a dummy either in her mouth, in her hand, or just nearby. And then a friend of mine, an ex-colleague of yours, messaged me and said, my friend has just left her current job and is setting up a business helping families with their sleep. And I remember thinking, yeah, all right, I'll have a look. I'm probably not going to do anything about this. Because, no offense, I know it's not the cheapest of things, because it is an expertise. It's not, you can't just go, yeah, do this and that's it, done. You've obviously had to go through training and need to pay your own life. But I said to my husband, I was like, right, this is how much it's going to cost us. We either go for it, and if it doesn't work, suck up the loss, or we do it and it works and it's the best money we've ever spent, or we just don't do anything at all. We just carry on as we are, and eventually I'm sure she'll sleep when she's 15. It'll be fine. I mean, we went on our honeymoon because we didn't actually get married until she was 9 months old, and we had to ask for extra bedding so that one of us could sleep on the sofa when she woke, because she would only go back to sleep if we were in the same room as her. And other nights she had to sleep in our bed, and I was like, well, this is not how I envisaged my honeymoon being. I mean, it was an awful holiday anyway, but it just made it even worse. And even my husband actually ended up in tears, saying, this isn't the holiday I had envisaged for you, and you're not enjoying it, and you're worrying about her and her sleep. So then obviously I met you. You came to our house. you went through the plan with us, and we spoke about cold turkey with the dummy. And I remember when you left, me saying to Steve, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Oh no, this was on a phone call. So I was like, I'm not doing it, Steve.
Yeah.
And then the day you came was the day after we'd taken it from her. And I think it was 2 days of screaming and tantrums without the dummy. And then we started the plan that you set in motion 2 days after we'd taken the dummy away. I don't know if you want me to go straight into how well it worked and what happened on our first night with her.
Well, let's pause there and just kind of recap what you've already said, because you've just given us a ton of information. And the whole point of you telling us this is because if there's just another mother out there or father that has had those types of feelings that you've had, it's really, I think it's such a big thing for them to listen and go, oh, I'm not on my own. Someone else has felt like that. I'm not the worst parent in the world for having these thoughts, because we have all been there with thoughts. Sleep deprivation obviously is used as a form of torture. So it is no surprise that our brains can go to the darkest of places when we are in that situation. Let's talk about mum guilt, because you say you have those kind of feelings of guilt when you're kind of telling her off for something because it takes you back. Okay, so you've experienced something really traumatic, really traumatic. And I've not been on that scale, but there's times where I am snapping at my little boy, and the moment you do it, you then feel guilty and you're like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? But you just can't help it, because you are just so tired.
Yeah.
Physically, you literally cannot help it. And those feelings around other people telling you that their kid is sleeping really well. And I remember having those feelings of, well, what's wrong with my child? What's wrong with him? Or what's wrong with me? I'm his mother. That's it. I'm supposed to know how to get my baby to sleep. I'm supposed to know everything that's wrong with them, or respond to their every cue and just know everything. But I don't know everything, and I can't work out what's going on. And that can make you feel, it made me feel a little bit inadequate as a mother, because I was like, I know how to keep him alive. I know I need to feed him, and I need to change him, and I need to not let him play with fire and stuff or run in the road. But other than that, I'm not really too sure what else to help him along, especially with sleep.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I remember you sharing with me the material from the other sleep consultant, and I just remember looking and going, this is, I think it was for age like 1 to 6 year olds.
1 to 6. Yeah.
And I just thought, how on earth are you trying to how you trying to help someone when you don't even know? Like, the personalization is such a big thing, and knowing your family is such a big thing, and just kind of giving people information and then just kind of letting them get on with it isn't overly conducive to helping someone, because your brain is then constantly wondering, you're still guessing, aren't you? You're still guessing kind of, well, what happened? What if this happens? And what if that happens?
And
so
they didn't even know whether or not I was a single parent, whether I was a night shift worker and had to deal with her before I went to work, or had she been poorly at any point. I mean, I think they did actually ask, had she been poorly at any point? Like you did. One of the first things you asked was there any problems with your pregnancy, with your birth, with this, with that, with the other? And Eden has had a lot of chest infections. And we were told that she's possibly got infant asthma, which she could grow out of, or it could become full-on asthma. And obviously all of these make a difference to what plan you're going to put in place. And I think when you came round and sat down and went through it and actually listened to me, and actually sat there listening to me and Steve bickering about whether or not we would check her, how often we would check on her throughout the night, and him saying, for God's sake, Kate, if we do it less, then we get more sleep. And I was like, well, we're not going to sleep anyway, so what does it matter? And then messaging you a couple of days later and being like, I've been awake all night because I'm just amazed that she's asleep all night, but she slept all night. But yeah, the mental health side of things is just, obviously it was compounded by the fact that I wasn't getting any sleep, and it literally was torture, and it affected absolutely everything, because obviously Eden can pick up on that, whether people believe in any of that or not. I think is it called mattress sense or something like that, where our blood is still within her blood is still within me.
Yeah.
And the fact that they can pick up on your feelings and how you're reacting to something.
Your energy, she can absolutely feel, like we spoke about this, she absolutely
Yep.
can feel your energy. If you walk in the room and you're trying to put her to sleep, and if she can sense that you're not quite comfortable, confident, or you've got some anxiety about it, she'll be like, hang on a minute, mum, you don't seem okay with this. You don't seem like you quite know what you're doing. So then I now feel like I'm not comfortable with this, which is going to make me cry even more and be stressed out even more. So she can absolutely, she can feel what you're feeling.
Yeah, completely. And I mean, I do think that part of, because obviously with the whole perinatal, oh God, what's it called? Postnatal depression and anxiety. I was obviously medicated, and I still am. I'm actually on a higher dose of medication now than I was to begin with. But even before and when I first started on that medication, I was crying so much in front of her. And my husband and I don't really argue. We bicker like everybody does, but we had a couple of big arguments over sleep. And we try our hardest not to argue or bicker in front of her. But when we did, she would come and cling to me. And when she sees me upset now, or I was reading her a book last night, I don't know if you know, giraffes can't dance.
Yes.
When the giraffe gets upset and he says, oh, I'm useless, and I put on a sad voice and a sad face and went through the emotions of the book, and Eden turned to me, put her hand on my cheek, and then wrapped her hand around my neck and started patting me on the shoulder and saying, are you okay? Whilst I was reading the book. And then obviously you turn the page and it becomes a happy bit. And I did all the happy emotions. And she was like, yeah, and cheering. And I do think that her seeing me go through all the ups and downs has actually sort of molded her into this really caring little girl. But also, it's not the greatest, is it? She's seeing her mum cry all the time, but it has actually made her really in touch with well, not necessarily with her own. She's obviously still at the age where she's quite confused and doesn't know how to express her own emotions. But when she sees, like her dad's got a cut on his nose at the moment, she goes up and touches it and says, ouch, and then gives it a kiss. And I think that seeing me going through all those ups and downs has actually made her know, or very aware of, other people's emotions. And
it's made her comfortable. It's made her comfortable to go, okay, so mummy's crying and she's okay with crying. She's okay with being upset in front of me. So that's going to be really beneficial for her, because the older she gets, when she's feeling any type of big emotion, she's going to be comfortable with feeling that and expressing that, because she's seen it modeled by you.
Yeah. And there's a there was something on Instagram this morning about this, saying that, you know, when your kids are absolute angels for other people and then they come home and all hell breaks loose and you get the tantrums, you get the slaps, you get the no's. And it was saying, you know, this isn't them being an angel for someone and for you. It's actually, and I've seen this time and time again, and every time I read it I think, okay, good, I'm doing something right. And it says that it's because your child trusts you enough to let out all their emotions around you and they feel safe. And it actually said, if they are an absolute angel around you, then that isn't because they're overly happy, it's because they don't 100% trust you, and they're concerned that if they show their proper emotions, that you won't react properly or the way that they want you to. So the fact that she does have her strops in front of me and my husband, and 99% of the time, if she has a bit of a meltdown or hurts herself, even if daddy's there cuddling her, she'll get off him and come to me, because I think I'm just a bit more, well, I'm definitely more cuddly because he's slim, but I think she just knows that she's never seen Steve cry. She's never seen him get angry, really. He's very rarely got angry with her, whereas I am the one who's like, for God's sake, what are you doing? And then I do get to the point of, okay, I'm sorry I shouted at you, but even though she doesn't understand, I think if I have these conversations with her now, I can carry them on, and she will eventually understand that I'm apologizing to her.
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes me, I think that's probably the one thing that does actually, when I read those things, it makes me think, okay, I am doing something right. Because I still every day think to myself, oh my God, what have I done wrong? I mean, she's a beige food child. She lives on sausages, chips, chicken nuggets, fish fingers, and basically any carb she can get her hand on.
I mean, she sounds like a perfect dinner date to me.
I know. She just give her a glass of wine and she's your best friend. But I know obviously we're mainly talking about sleep here, but the sleep side of things, in all seriousness, since we employed you, because I'd like to point out to anyone watching, I didn't know you before any of this, and it was through a friend who said, oh, my mate Amanda has done this. I was so skeptical, and I told you that at the time, and since we've been getting sleep, and obviously you haven't just left us now, oh yep, she's sleeping through now, see you later guys. I have messaged you quite frequently saying, okay, she's not napping, what do I do? And how helpful you've been and tweaking things for us.
Her chicken pox, bless her.
Her chicken pox, I mean, that was horrific. And my backache afterwards, I ended up going to physio because of sleeping on her bedroom floor. But she is so much, I mean, we've got rid of the dummy, like I said, it was cold turkey. Not gone back since the day before we met you. She's not had that dummy back. She sucked her thumbs maybe twice, but for less than a minute each time. She was probably eating a bogey, if I'm honest, but she was sucking her thumb. Her speech has come on. Her confidence has grown. Her
fluid. I remember you telling me like her fluid intake as well. I remember you messaging me saying she's drinking so much more water.
She wasn't touching it. I mean, if you said to her, there's your drink, there's your water. I mean, we call it juice. Yeah. She sometimes calls it water herself, but we say juice. In public, people are probably thinking, what, have you given her a can of Coke? But we call it juice so that she just thinks juice is water, water's juice. If you were to put that in front of her back in October, November, she'd say no and either run away from it or just push it away. Now you say to her, can you have some juice? She'll go over, take a slurp, and you say, can you have a bit more? And she'll do it. And then she puts it down. But she actually asks for it herself now, and that was one of our huge concerns. Her number twos were solid as anything. She wasn't getting anywhere near enough liquid. She was drinking milk, but that was it. And I think too much milk was obviously bunging her up as well. And the amount of things that have changed since she has started sleeping are just, I'm in awe of her. I'm in awe of you, to be honest, Amanda. We're like, oh, girl fan. I cannot believe how different she is and how different our lives are. I mean, you did tell us to get rid of the monitor. We haven't. Steve wants to, but it's more of a, for me, for my personal thing, I think because of my mental health, it feels like a bit of a safety blanket.
Yeah.
We never have the sound on. We don't need it on because she's got a hell of a pair of lungs on her. But we just have it there in front of us. It's normally lying down, so you can't actually see it anyway. And we have the screen turned off when we go to bed at night. But it's there so we can just press a button and look at it to check that she's okay. Because, like I said to you recently, she was taking her sleep bag off and trying to climb out and back, planking on the side of her cot. But it's just there as a,
it gives you a bit of peace of mind. Absolutely.
I mean, she screamed in the middle of the night the other week, and I sat bolt upright, looked at the monitor, and she was sound asleep. She must have been having a nightmare or something, or maybe it was a fox. I don't know, but it was good because it meant I could just quickly look at the screen and know that she was asleep. But it will go eventually, and it's starting to break, so we'll have to get rid. But I cannot promote you enough. And I've even said to Steve, and I think I don't know if I've said this to you or not yet, but I've already said to Steve, I want to do what Amanda does. I want to train to be a sleep consultant so that when I leave the job I'm in, I can do that rather than going and working in a supermarket or something after I leave. I mean, you know what my current job is, but once I've left there, I want to have something that I'm actually helping people with, something that I'm really passionate about. And hence why I've agreed to do this. I don't think I would ever have agreed to do a podcast with anyone ever before. Like when you phoned me this morning, I said, do I have to have the camera on? Because I've got no makeup on, my hair's not done. I've not even had a shower.
No, good. Yeah, good job we can't smell you, that's for sure. but obviously helping people is a powerful thing. And when, you know, I have some skeptical people come to me as well, and we'll have a conversation and we'll talk about kind of, you know, paying for this service. And, you know, I have some people say to me, like, you should give this away for free, this should be available to everybody. And I'm like, yeah, I get that, but so could medication be available and free.
You could say that about anything.
You could say that, you know, you could say that about water as well. But it's not what I'm trying to say is it's not just getting your little one to sleep. It's like, I think people just kind of box it off and go, oh, it's just sleep. And my thing is, it's never just about sleep. It's like the ripple effect that lack of sleep has between a family dynamic. And that's what's really important. Like if you say to me, oh yeah, my kid's sleeping through now, I'm like, great, but how are you guys as a family? What do your weekends look like? What does your relationship look like? What does development, like you're telling me that Eden and her speech, her fluid, her confidence, her personality, that's the result I want for children. And you know, tell me a little bit about kind of what your relationships like, or what weekends look like for you guys as a family now compared to what they looked like before when you weren't getting any sleep.
A lot of the time on the weekends, so I think 2 out of 4 weekends Steve would be working, so I would be on my own with her. And the amount of times that he would leave for work and I would be in tears saying, I don't know how I'm going to get through today. I just don't know how. I don't know what I'm going to do with her. I don't know if I even can muster up the strength to leave the house. And he would have to check in on me and be like, are you okay? I can come home if you need me to. And he couldn't, because he can't just take the time off work to come and check that I'm okay. And then for him to get home and be like, well, the house isn't on fire. Why do you need me here? So initially weekends were, to before we employed yourself, obviously, sometimes they were fun, other times I would will the weekend away because I wanted to get back to work, or I wanted to fast forward to the Monday where Steve was going to be off work and he would have to deal with her. And when I say he had to deal with her, I don't mean it's down to you now. It was a day that I was going to work and I feel like me again, and be able to be like, right, I don't have to worry about her. She's with someone else. She's someone else's problem right now. And Steve and I are very good at sharing tasks and bits and pieces. I mean, obviously, like you know that we were both doing bath time, which confused Eden quite a bit. But we did like doing stuff as a family because that was one of the things that we were able to do and enjoy because it was fun. And then every night I was coming downstairs and you could see Steve's look on his face. He was like, you're panicking already about her waking up and she hasn't even gone to sleep yet. So yeah, weekends were quite lonely when he was working. When he wasn't working, a lot of the time it was a case of, can you take her to the park for an hour so I can have an hour to myself? And then he'd take her and she'd fall asleep in the car. And he'd have to sit in the car, and we've never really been able to transport her from the car to the house without waking her up. So we were spending, sometimes I think I spent 2 hours in the car with her asleep, afraid to move her, afraid to do anything, to make any noise or whatever. Just everything seemed a chore. Everything seemed to be a lot harder than it needed to be. And again, I would see people posting things on social media, or just be talking to friends about what they've done over the weekend with their family or with their kids. And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, I've done those, but I've hated every second of it. She may have been happy, but I'm exhausted. Coffee doesn't really make any difference to me. I just like it, so I drink it. But I could have a coffee at midnight and still fall asleep half hour later. But I was just running on coffee and her smiles, basically. And there was a lot more tantrums when she wasn't sleeping, obviously, because she was so tired. And then that had the ripple effect of me getting angry, me getting annoyed, me getting upset, passing that on to her. I have lost count of the amount of times that I would have shouted at her, just go to sleep. A 9-month-old baby, a 2-year-old, or whatever age, the age that she's at now, she probably understands what I'm shouting if I shout that. I don't need to shout that anymore. But at the age that I was shouting at her, she wouldn't have had a clue. She'd probably just think, why is this woman yelling at me? You're meant to love me. Steve was working shifts as well. I mean, he doesn't anymore, but he was working shifts. And if I knew that I had to do bath and bed and deal with her throughout the night because he was going to get up early for work, just my anxiety and the panic, and I mean, I didn't have actual panic attacks, but the fear of going to sleep or even walking upstairs to go to bed, because I think I said this to you at the time, it was like she knew, oh, mummy's off to bed, time for me to wake up. And I'd just be, Steve would call me and I'd be in tears and he'd be like, what's going on? I say, well, she's asleep. And he's like, well, that's okay then. I'm like, no, she's asleep next to me in our bed and I can't sleep. And you now have to sleep in the spare bedroom. And we've been together 5 years. We've been married 2 years this year. I can probably count on one hand the amount of big arguments we've had. But the bickering, the snapping at each other, the snidey comments of, well, it's your turn to change the nappy, or it's your turn to deal with her tonight, or the calculations of
competition of who's had the more minutes sleep than the other and who deserves to be more tired.
So you're waking up early in the morning. So if you deal with her from when she goes to bed until midnight, and then I'll take over from midnight until we get up. But then actually I've got her throughout the whole day and you've only got to go and stand around at work and do whatever it is you do. It just became ridiculous.
Almost like the resentment of them going to work because they could just go and do whatever they wanted to do and not have to worry about the kid.
Yeah. And then coming home and being like, I'm so tired. I've had such a busy day at work. And the steam coming out of my ears, I'd be like, are you actually kidding me? So, yeah, I mean, everything's changed. Everything. She's happier. She's more confident. She plays independently. And I'm well aware that nursery and friends and family have got a part to play in this as well. But without having her sleep, she wouldn't be doing all of those things because she'd be too tired and grumpy. And I mean, yesterday, for example, she didn't have a nap. Was it yesterday? Yep. Came home from Nanny and Granddad's. She just sat on the sofa eating an ice pole under her blanket, and she looked like she was going to fall asleep at 5 o'clock in the evening. And I was like, no, you're not going to sleep. And before actually being able to sleep, she wouldn't have just sat there looking tired. She'd have been beside herself. She'd have been angry. She'd have been horrible, actually. I know she doesn't mean to be, but she would have been horrible. But now, I mean, our weekends, we plan way too much. We do too much with her sometimes. Steve says to me, you know, we can just have a day at home and she can play in the garden, or she can play with her toys in the living room, or just sit down and draw or read. But I still think that for me, I almost feel like I'm compensating for that guilt for the first 9 months to a year. I mean, I don't really remember the first 9 months with her. I have to look at photos and I look at them and think, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
And I think I'm still subconsciously, or actually probably part consciously, trying to make up for that time. And I don't think, I mean, I obviously sent you pictures of my Instagram where I think it was August and maybe April last year, photos of me, ugly photos of crying and then a photo of me a week after having worked with you, and the smile on my face and the non-dark circles around my eyes. And I just want people to, I mean, I did have a best friend who told me I shouldn't be posting this stuff about my mental health and how I feel on social media because it made her and others feel uncomfortable. And I just don't care, because I think people need to know that it isn't just flowers and rainbows. I mean, I post now mainly happy posts about Eden because that's mainly what I have, because I have to sleep. And I don't really take photos of her when she's having a tantrum. I used to, because I'd be like, this is what I'm dealing with, Steve. But people need to know that it's normal, and you're not on your own.
No,
because I felt I mean, Steve hated it when I said I feel alone. I feel like I'm doing this by myself. I knew I wasn't, but I felt like I was, because he seemed to be coping, but actually he wasn't. Deep down, he was putting on a coping front for me because he knew that I wasn't coping. And yeah, that first 9 months, it was just,
well, you hit the nail on the head when you say you can't remember most of it as well.
I just remember it being horrible.
That's it. Like, and that's like most of your maternity leave that you've not enjoyed, and that I think we still carry that round with us again in a guilt form, because I can remember 1 or 2 moments of Jack being a baby, but other than that, I just remember, like you say, the anxiety. If my husband was at work and working a 12-hour shift, I was so anxious leading up to bedtime, because I thought, well, he's not going to go to sleep and he's not going to sleep all night, but I'm still really looking forward to bedtime because I just need a moment where no one's touching me, there's no other noise. Like, the overstimulation of being a mum is immense.
Insane.
It's crazy. There's someone, mummy, or just the crying and having to do everything for them, which is fine because we are a mother and that's what we do. Yes. But you just need a little bit of time where no one, because you're basically on call 24/7,
but not getting paid.
And you just need a couple, like an hour or so of just not being on call.
Just even 5 minutes. I mean, we would not argue, but we would, I don't know if Steve would admit to this, but I would be very much like, right, it's Wednesday. I don't work Wednesdays. I have my day with Eden. By the time Steve gets home, I'm like, right, I'm going to make dinner.
Yeah,
you go in the living room.
Tap out.
Leave me alone.
That's it. Tag team. Yeah. You're on. Absolutely.
It's my turn. Just give me 5 minutes. Do you want me to help? No, I don't.
No, I don't want anything. I just remember all I wanted to do was stand and do the washing up, or stand and hang the baby grows over the airer. But I couldn't do that because he would not be put down and he would just cry all the time because he was so overtired. I was like, I just want to do the washing up. Like, what is that? What kind of wish is that? I just want to stand and do the washing up.
I actually want to put my marigolds on.
Yeah, it's just, but at the time, like, those seemingly small things mean the world to you, don't they? It's just,
I mean, they still do. They are still, no matter how much of a happy child she is now, she still has a moment. She asks for sweets. She wants sweets all the time, and I'm angry with myself for ever having introduced them to her. But she now pulls this face where she, and her bottom teeth.
Oh, you can't say no.
Angry, and when that comes along, I'm like, oh my God, will you stop? And then I feel really guilty, and then I try to distract her, and then half the time I end up giving in and giving her a sweet. But I've forgotten what my point was now.
Just well, we're talking about stimulation and constant needing,
and it's the repetition of one word. I mean, I don't mind so much when she says mummy over and over again. I'm still at the stage where I find it quite cute. Yeah, and I think because I missed out on that first 9 months, I think I'm very much, oh, I'm mummy. And recently she's just suddenly started calling me mama, which I actually wanted to be called. I didn't want to be mummy. And then every now and again, mum comes out.
Oh, no, that broke my heart, Kate. When I went
2.5.
Mummy,
Why you call me mum?
That's it, mum. I was like, I beg your pardon. I'm like, no,
I said
it's
to her,
not
sorry,
me.
who are you talking to? But it just, I don't mind that, but it's the incessant sweet, 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 sweet. Or if I haven't put the right program on the telly, unicorn, unicorn, Mickey Mouse. And then I put it on. She's like, not that one, no. And sometimes it's funny. Other times I think, God, send me back to work. When are you going to bed? Because I'm on countdown now for the amount of hours until you go to sleep.
Yes.
And then once she's in bed, I sit there looking at my phone at all the pictures or
And you
texting
miss
my
her.
friends talking about her
Yeah.
or
It's
watching the
crazy.
monitor. I mean, I've spent an absolute fortune on clothes, and at the moment, she barely wants to get out of her pajamas. And if she does, she just wants to wear something that's got a unicorn on it. So I spent £60 on clothes that have unicorns on them, and she wants to wear the same one over and over again. So I might as well have just sent the rest back and just put it on a wash every night.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've actually forgotten what we were talking about now. But
Oh, so have I, if I'm honest. But
yeah.
well, what I think the bottom line is that now you've got more patience, you're able to enjoy the time with Eden. I guess in family time is, I know you say that you kind of keep wanting to pack as much into kind of your days with her as you can. But that's understandable. But how does it feel if you've had a really busy, say you've been at work all day, you've come home, you've got to spend some time with her, or you've had a run of really busy days, and just to know when you look at your watch and it's like 6 o'clock and you're like, in an hour, half an hour, she's going to go to sleep and I'm not going to see or hear anything until at least 6:30 tomorrow morning. What is that feeling like?
I actually still sometimes feel a bit guilty when I do look at my watch and go, right, it's 5:30. In half an hour, she can have a snack. And then I know I'm on the home stretch. But like, I shouldn't feel, and I know I shouldn't feel guilty, because as soon as I do feel guilty for it, I then think, actually, no, because she needs to have this sleep. She needs this routine. But it is such a nice feeling now. And I do still worry every single night. And I spoke to somebody about, I've got a new boss, and he called me yesterday. And he said, oh, so you're into all this well-being stuff? I said, yeah. Told him what I was doing with yourself. And what was I going to say?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh my God.
Well-being, peri-mental health.
Well, I said I was doing this with you, and he said, oh, I'm really, oh my God, what was your question, Amanda? I've literally just lost my mind.
How does it feel knowing that she's going to go to sleep and she's going to sleep, you're not going to hear a peep from her till the next day? And then you said that you still,
I don't know why I mentioned my boss. It was something about the fact that he said he's been there, and about sleep being torture, etc. And I don't know, it gets to that time, and I think I actually really enjoy this. I enjoy her bedtime now. And actually, a couple of weeks back, Steve was like, oh, I thought I was doing bedtime. And before it was like, oh God, what? I don't want to do this. I know she's going to kick off. I know she's going to not let me put her nappy on. I know we're going to have a battle to get her into her sleep bag. Now it's actually a really enjoyable experience, and it finishes her day off nicely for her and for us. Oh, that's what I was going to say. I still panic that every night, this is what I was saying. My boss called and said, what have you been doing? What's your background? Blah, blah, blah. Told him about the sleep thing. And I said to him, you know, she now sleeps 11 to 12 hours a night. And he went, oh, don't say that, you'll jinx it. And I said, I think that every single day.
Really?
And every single day, bar the 2 weeks that she had the chicken pox, I shouldn't have panicked. I shouldn't have worried. And it's really funny because I forget that we're only in, I know we're at the very end of April, but we're only 5 months into this. And we've only had, aside from chickenpox, we only had 2 other nights that have been a bit iffy.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
We've only had 2 other nights that have been a bit iffy. And both of those were when she was poorly.
Yeah.
And aside from that, she's been an absolute angel. We went away, my husband took me away for my 40th. She stayed with my in-laws for 3 nights. And She was an angel. But I didn't panic, and I didn't worry about the fact that I couldn't look at the monitor to check that she was okay, because she stayed at their house.
Yeah.
And I would never have done that. I would never, if he'd have said to me in November, sorry, I've booked for us to go away for your birthday, I would have said to him, we're either taking her or I'm not going. But then when he told me in January, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, in February, I didn't panic. I didn't go, oh my God, no, I can't leave her. They've got to stay there. I need to be able to see the monitor. I did get him to check on her through parents, and we did FaceTime. And she was annoyed with us when we came home. She was very much, how dare you go away without me?
But because it can become all encompassing, can't it?
Yeah.
Sleep can just be on your mind 24/7.
Yeah.
And the very fact that you were able to go away and leave her and just have the confidence of going, yeah, she's got this. Because like I always say to you as well, we can never expect children to have the perfect night's sleep every single night. Us as adults, pre-children, I know it's hard to remember before she arrived, but throughout our whole life, we've never had the perfect night's sleep every single night.
No.
So we can never expect that for them. It's just it's unrealistic. So of course you'll have a night here or there where things aren't perfect, but that's okay, because I'm hoping that you've then got the confidence to be like, we just need to stick with our routine. We know exactly that actually tomorrow night she's going to get back on track. Or if you want to go to a family party, or if you go on holiday, or if she stays up a little bit later one night, you can still go and live your life and it be okay when you return. If, you know, sleep gets derailed for whatever reason, I'm hoping that you've got the confidence to go, it's going to be fine. Like just to give you that kind of peace of mind.
We go on holiday in June, and I said to Steve, I'm actually more excited about this holiday than I was about our honeymoon. Partly, a massive chunk of it because of the sleep, and because I'm happy to go away with her now, knowing that, like you just said, if we have a bad night, I mean, I don't expect her to have a perfect first couple of nights there, but we're there for 10 days. So if it's the first couple of nights, then so be it. But I know that she is capable of doing it, and so am I. And
Absolutely.
I think that was one of the biggest things for me, was I going to be able to follow the plan to get to the point that we're at now? And obviously with your help and with Steve's, with 5 months, that's what I was saying. I mean, I can't believe it's only coming up to 6 months of this. It feels like this has been going on for years, well, since she was born now, and obviously it hasn't. But when she had chickenpox and I think it was something like 4 hours sleep one night, the next day I just said to Steve, how on earth did we ever cope on for the first 9 months, an hour sleep a night? And that is no exaggeration. Well, it definitely was the first 5 months I was only having an hour of sleep a day. But then after that, between 3 and 5 hours a night, to now, some nights I'm going to bed at 8:30 just because I can.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't do work.
That's it. Yeah,
I don't have to worry. I mean, Steve went out last night, and I didn't even sit there thinking, oh my God, what time is he going to be back?
Because
I sat there thinking, he's having a nice meal out and I'm having a shake for dinner, but hey. But also, I didn't sit there and panic.
No, and when you say about, how did we ever survive, is because I feel like so much pressure and stigma is around sleep, where lots of people on the internet will tell you, you're a parent now, you're a mum now, suck it up, this is what it means to be a parent, you need to be up all hours of the night responding to your baby, you then need to be up every single hour during the day, and it's perfectly okay for you not to get any sleep, and this is your life now, and you know, just get on with it. And yes, I'm not against absolutely responding to every cry that your baby does, and that's something you want to do, that's fine. But it's just about destigmatizing it and just telling people that there is a choice. There is always a choice. And I always say to people, if you're happy, doing what you're doing, if you're happy having your baby in the bed with you, if you're happy with how you're getting your baby to sleep, and if you're happy with what you do in the night, then I'm not going to tell you otherwise. You carry on doing what is best for you and your family. I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, this is what you should be doing. No, if you're happy, you carry on. But if you aren't happy, there's choice out there. You can change things if you want to.
I remember posting something on, I think it was Facebook, just saying, I don't know what to do. Oh, this is a nightmare. This is so difficult, blah, 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 blah. And I remember a male colleague of mine commenting, saying, you need to stop moaning. You wanted to be a mum. This is what you signed up for. And I remember thinking, A, that's rude. If you're going to comment, at least say, sorry you're going through this, but if you don't like the comment, just don't write on it at all. But also, no, I didn't sign up to having no sleep. I mean, one of the things when I first had Eden was the anxiety stopped me from eating, and I didn't really put on very much weight whilst I was pregnant with her anyway, because she had fetal growth restrictions, so that sort of restricted everything. I didn't really put on much weight either. But I remember sitting, I think at least for the first 3 months, if I put any form of hot food to my mouth, I would gag. I would get the food onto the fork. I was hungry as hell, and I would pick it up, and I would, things, simple homely foods that are my favourites, like cottage pie or sausage and mash. And I remember one night Steve saying, right, I've got us a bottle of wine, I'm making a sausage and mash, you'll have to do the gravy because he can't make gravy. You know, we're going to have a nice night. We had one of those little sleep egg things, and Eden was on the dining room table asleep for once. I'm drinking a glass of wine, and I put this mouthful of sausage and mash to my mouth, and I just burst out crying. I was like, this is one of my favourite meals. It's just simple, it's hearty, I just love it. And I just burst out crying, and Steve was like, what is wrong? And I said, I physically cannot put this in my mouth. You know when you get that watery feeling when you're going to be sick? That happened for, like I said, at least 5 months after I had her. And I even had a friend come round. It was obviously COVID, but she did a doorstep drop off of a little bag of some essential oils for me to rub on my wrists, and a little book and a card and a poem she'd written for me, and a bag of salad. She bought me a bag of salad because she knew that I couldn't eat. I was literally living off salad leaves and bits and pieces. It wasn't because I was ashamed of having put on weight from being pregnant, because I didn't care. Like, that was, I expected to balloon when I was pregnant, and I just amazingly didn't. I'm bigger now than I was after I gave birth to Eden. But that was purely because I had to walk everywhere to get her to sleep. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, so the weight just fell off. And actually, maybe I should blame you for having put on about a stone, because now I can actually sit down and eat a meal in peace, so I get to finish it. So now I'm just eating everything in sight. But it's just, everything has changed. Everything.
Yeah, and you're right. And it's not, this isn't what you signed up for. Like, if your parenting ability and your mental health and your physical health and your child's development is being affected because lack of sleep, I don't see a world where that's okay.
No,
I don't see a world where you standing on a bridge and having those thoughts is okay because that's what you signed up for.
I've made so many people feel uncomfortable by saying that and telling them that and saying it in an open forum. And although I know I look a little bit like Myra Hingley this morning, I am not a murderer. And it is okay to have those thoughts, because, I mean, my dad even said to me, I remember telling him and him saying to me, Kate, how many times have you stood on the platform of a tube or a train station and thought, I wonder what it'll feel like to jump? But you don't do it. It's just something, it has a name. And the mental health woman that would come round and speak with me, she gave, I don't know, it's something thoughts. And everyone does it.
Yeah.
Apparently everybody does it. She said, but the difference is you were actually going to act on this and you realized that you needed the help. And obviously a lot of women and men don't. They do actually. And sometimes I read these, I mean, not the ones that physically beat their children to death or whatever, but the ones that are suffering and they were actually mentally unwell and they ended up suffering and hurting themselves and their children. I can see how that happened.
Yeah.
I worked within child abuse for a number of years, and I always remember thinking, God, how can you do that to your child? How can you flip so easily, how can you flip so badly?
Mm.
But actually, I can see it. I'm not ashamed to say that when Eden was tiny, well, I'm ashamed to say it, but I know why I did this now. She was screaming once so much and not sleeping that I didn't throw her, but I kind of dropped her onto my bed, not from a great height, just from like a tiny little, from, I don't know, boob to waist height onto the bed, and was like, just stop crying. She wasn't hurt. She probably just looked at me and said, what did you do that for? Now, if I did that, she loves it. She loves being thrown around. But I can see how people can snap through lack of sleep and mental health, and especially perinatal mental health, because you are alone and you have this baby, and yes, you want this baby, and you have it. You spend maybe 1 night, 2 nights in hospital, or even people that don't, they have their baby and then they go home. You're sent home. You don't get a manual. You don't get home visits all the time. And especially during COVID, our health visitor only spoke to us on the phone. Didn't even come in the house. I told her I was suffering and she was like, oh, you'll be okay. Just get some sleep. Oh, okay. It's
Yeah.
simple, darling. But you don't have help. You don't have a manual. They don't come with if this is broken, this is how you fix it. They don't have batteries that you can take out at night to get them to sleep. You know, it's a full-time job as well as being a full-time working mum and dad. And things are going to suffer. I mean, our house is an absolute tip, but I don't care. It's clean enough. I don't care. I have a happy child. I have a happy life. And yet I still get normal daily stresses of either being a mum or being at work, or money stresses or whatever. But at least I'm sleeping, because actually after a good night's sleep, everything does seem that bit more manageable.
You're more equipped to tackle things, aren't you, with sleep under your belt?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Completely.
Okay, thank you so much.
I didn't cry, Amanda. I'm very impressed with myself.
I know. I'm very proud of you. I am very, very proud of you. Thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome.
And I hopefully see everybody on the next episode.
Yes. Thank you very much.